Welcome to Ecommerce Revamped, where we break down the hottest trends, insider tips, and strategies shaping the future of e-commerce. Powered by Miva, the engine behind seamless online stores. Now here's your host, Rob Stanley.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Ecommerce Revamped. I'm Rob Stanley, and my co-host is out right now, but that's okay. I got this covered. We got a great one for you guys today. This company's actually been around for a while. They do a lot of stuff in the Amazon industry, but also the e-commerce industry. And we're going to have Chen come in just a minute from PickFu, and we're going to be talking about avoiding costly e-commerce mistakes with consumer insights. You're going to want to pay attention to this because you will definitely find value in this, and you're going to find definitely some resources that are going to help you out with your website, with your images, all kinds of really cool stuff. So let's get Justin into the studio. Hey, Justin, how you doing?
Hey, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to have you. Of course, people probably don't know, I've had a lot of other podcasts. This is probably my fifth one, and Justin's been on every one of them, and there's a reason why. You know, we definitely need to know more about a lot of e-commerce mistakes that are being made, ways to fix them, especially when it comes to consumer insights. So, Justin, let's jump right into this. How do data insights prevent e-commerce mistakes?
Yeah, I think it comes down to understanding the implications of your decisions before you make them. So what we like to say with PickFu is that it helps you test out hypothetical decisions. So, for example, if you were to launch a new product or buy certain color variations or adjust your packaging, these are all really important decisions. They all have implications of how much time or money you're going to invest into it. And they're going to have a huge impact on whether or not you do well in your sales. And so the more data you can gather upfront as you're making those decisions, the better outcome you're going to have. So with a platform like PickFu, we like to say it's a digital focus group that helps you test those hypothetical product decisions. You won't be flying blind and just hoping that, this product that we ordered and we put on our website, we hope it's going to sell. We hope that the marketing imagery or the videos that we use in the ads does well. You would know all that if you were to gather consumer insights ahead of time.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's give everybody a little bit more understanding of the A/B testing that we're referring to as we're kind of going through some of these questions in this interview today.
Yeah. So I guess I'll start by distinguishing live A/B testing, which you can do on your website or a platform like Miva, where you're putting either A or either B. Like if you're testing it live, like, and a lot of times people do this with website layouts. You may be subject to an A/B test. You won't even know it, right? Because you're only seeing one version of the copy or one version of an image. And so that's the traditional live A/B testing. But there's another way you can do kind of pre-testing with a platform like PickFu, where it's not on your actual customers. It's not on your live website. It's not live at all. It's actually in a sandbox environment where we're kind of conducting online surveys to audience members that are your target audience. So perhaps they're women dog owners is who you want to sell to. We would go reach out to them, and what we call it is actually a preference test. So you're putting up a few different creative options, perhaps marketing copy, and asking the audience to vote on which one they like, and then also give written explanations why, so that you can understand why they made that choice and then how to improve it. And that's really the key thing, is that once you start doing this kind of testing, it becomes very iterative because now you're not just looking at a final result. Like, say you do a live A/B test on your website layout and one does better. Okay, well, you have assumptions on why it did better. Maybe people, you did change the color or you changed the font or something like that, but you don't know 100% because they're not actually telling you. And the same if you're launching an ad, right? You're running a Facebook ad. One ad does better than the other. You don't really know why. No one really told you why they chose that one. You're making a lot of assumptions. So if you pre-test with a platform like PickFu that has that qualitative component to it, where they have to give a written explanation why, then you can kind of dive into, oh, okay, so like they did like this, but they still didn't like something else about it. And that could be equally important, even if it does do better, right? So there's a big piece of gathering consumer insight that is not just looking at quantitative data, but understanding the qualitative why people are thinking a certain way.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've actually used PickFu myself for many years. In fact, I've known Justin probably close coming up on 7 years now. So I'm a big fan of PickFu, and I'm going to give you guys an example. Ecommerce Revamped, the actual name. We actually narrowed down the name when we were coming up with a new podcast name down to 2 different names. I liked a different one. Our CEO, Rick, he liked Ecommerce Revamped. I said, hey, it's easy. I know how to fix this. Let's test it. So I went on PickFu. I took both the names. I picked entrepreneurs because I figured that's going to be the ones probably that are going to be, mainly listening and watching the podcast. And we ran a test. I think we did either 50 or 100-person test, and we had them vote. And I just gave them the names. I set up a question and said, hey, we're looking to do a new podcast. Of course, we already owned both names, .coms. And I was, hey, we're looking to, do a new podcast. Which of these names would fit? And I gave a description of, the podcast, and we let people decide. Actually, it was crazy. Ecommerce Revamp won by about 60 to 40, basically. So I was like, well, heck, the people have spoken. So that's the name. So there's a great example of using PickFu on how to, A/B test things. But I mean, it goes deeper than that. And one of the things that does come up is people always have, trying to figure out like, how do I price something like a product, right? Do I go $14.99? Do I go $19.99? So Justin, what kind of pricing effect do how does pricing affect online shoppers, and how do
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of as any consumer is going through the buying process, there's a lot of factors that are impacting that, right? It's not only the price, but it's the branding, the packaging, the marketing imagery that you're using to show it off, your product detail page, any videos that you might have. But the pricing is important because it kind of it kind of places it into different buckets, right? If it's a high ticket item versus a low ticket item, you're already psychologically priming them for certain expectations, right? If it's few $100s, they're probably going to expect higher quality or more of something or whatever it is. If it's something cheaper, if you're a lower price point, then it's more of a value-based decision. One of the ways that you can test this, there's a couple different ways you could test this. One, you can do kind of pricing sensitivity tests, where you ask people, what's the cheapest price that you would think? You could show the product, you could describe it, and you run a survey. What's the cheapest price you would pay for this that it doesn't feel cheap? What's the most expensive that you would pay for this that it doesn't feel overpriced? And you could ask, there's a methodology called the Van Westendorp, and there's 4 specific questions that you ask in these different dimensions, and it kind of gives you the extremes of cheap and expensive. And then you can actually plot those price points and come to like a pretty good starting point. And so like that's a great way to price something if you want to hear it from from the consumer's mouth. Obviously, you can look at competitors and price it that way, but it's really interesting to hear them articulate why they may think that $60 is expensive, but 20 just feels too cheap, right? Because you don't want it too cheap, because then you're just, it's a Temu thing, right? Like, why is it $1? Like it can't be good. Like so pricing is a very psychological thing. The other thing that I recommend people test pricing wise is bundles. And a lot of times people have bundles of like, maybe you have a water pitcher, and maybe people like to buy pitchers in 2s or 3s or whatever it is. And that's an interesting way to play with pricing, and a great thing that you could test before even creating those bundles, before even making those SKUs and putting them up on your website, is testing out, oh, okay, well, if I do 2 of them and it's not quite double the price, but like it's only 50% more, do people psychologically like that more? And you could test that, and you could read the explanations why. And so there's a lot of interesting pricing tests that you can do ahead of time. I would even recommend testing your pricing against your competitors too, because whether you're in a marketplace or not, you're still going to be compared to competition, right? So whether they're going directly to your website, they're looking at your ads, coming to your website, they're still thinking about your direct competitors. So placing your product image and your price, and then doing a comparison to your competitors, will give you an understanding of, oh, they may say something like, I would buy this one, which might be your competitor, even though it's a higher price, because it looks higher quality. now you need to start digging into like why are they saying that it looks, and it could just be because the quality of the marketing imagery is better. Maybe it's even just the packaging, or the brand name sounds more luxurious, right? There are so many factors, and you would only understand that through this kind of qualitative feedback. It's a lot of times people come to us because they're trying to optimize their marketing imagery, like, oh, my click-through rates aren't good, and they're just want to find like the easy tweaks to like, oh, I just want to get like a higher click-through rate, I just want to move the layout around, something like that. What inevitably happens is they get the feedback, they read through all the written feedback, and everyone is talking about their branding or their packaging or their product design, because those are all weren't optimized before this point. And I know we've all bought stuff online, and especially on Amazon, where you're like, that's the weirdest brand name for this kind of product I've ever purchased, but like whatever, like maybe I'm just going to buy it because it's cheap. But at the same time, that goes both ways, right? Because you probably know that it's some weird China direct company, or maybe it's a fly-by-night company. For some products, you're okay with it, right? Like whatever, it's a cup or something like that. But for other things, if I'm paying a couple $100s, I want it to feel like this brand actually is going to be in it for the long run, right? Like that they actually care about building that kind of product. And so all of those things are important things to work on from the early stage and really test. I think those are the things that don't get tested often enough. A lot of times, like your podcast example, people come in like, no, I got the name for it, I'm going with this. And that happens with the brand, that happens with the product name, that happens with all these micro decisions that every entrepreneur has. Like no, like I've got the vision, like this is my baby, right? But something I like to tell our team is that it's not just the idea that matters, it's the right version of the idea. And so just because you might have the brilliant idea that like some magical new tea kettle should come to market, but the version of that tea kettle is kind of up for iteration, right? Like the material that's used, the handle design, like all these different micro decisions that are going into it could be tested before you just say like, no, like I'm going to come up with everything on my own and not test it, and then I'm just going to launch a product. And like, that's a unfortunate way to do things, because a lot of times what you think is not what your target audience is looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. That's some great information. And, Justin's given a lot of different, like we're talking about A/B testing of images, pricing, and things like that. After the break, we're going to take a quick commercial break. But when we come back, though, we're going to ask Justin, what is the one change that will boost your sales immediately? And right after the break, before we do that, I'm going to also let you guys know or tell you how PickFu actually ended up saving me over $10,000 right after this break.
Need an e-commerce platform that's as ambitious as you are? Miva empowers your business with seamless design, top-tier features, and the flexibility to scale. For serious growth and a better online experience, it's got to be Miva. Visit miva.com/podcast and start building success today.
So head on over to miva.com/podcast. We have a bunch of free ebooks and all kinds of really cool stuff over there. But right before the break, I probably got your attention on how did PickFu end up saving me like $10,000. I'm going to give that story, and then we're going to ask right after that Justin to give us information on which one change will boost your sales immediately. So I'm going to make this short as possible, but basically a few years back, I was asked to basically back a person financially on a new product. They brought me the design that they came up with. I was a little skeptical on it. It was X amount of dollars to basically get like the mold made. And then, we needed to get a certain amount of them and everything. And I was like, whoa, let's slow down here. I know how to do this. Let's approach this a little bit differently. And what I ended up doing was basically we got a 3D model done of it. We basically made it mock up look almost like the real image of the product. Took it over to PickFu, and I first of all had a two-part question. So I put the product up there, described what the product was, and I basically asked two things. I said, A, would you buy this, first of all? And second, would you pay? And I think I put a price on there. Maybe I asked them even how much they would pay. I can't remember. It was a few years ago. So, but point being that what ended up happening is actually 80 to 90% of the people didn't even want it. Okay, first of all. And second of all, when I told them, even if you didn't want, what would you have paid for this? the price was going to be lower than our cost to actually manufacture it on what they would actually pay. So, and the reason I said $10,000 because if I went with the mold and went with the initial run of actually ordering these, I think it was going to be close to $10,000 to $15,000 to actually get this thing on market, just to find out it was really going to fail. And that's how PickFu actually saved me at least $10,000. So, but I want to hand this back over to Justin. So, Justin, what is the one change that could boost sales immediately for e-commerce sellers?
If you had to just choose one thing, I think it would be making an adjustment to your, your hero image or your, the main image on your product detail page. I think there's a lot more that can be showcased a lot of times. And whether this is on your own website, on your Miva shop, or the image that gets syndicated to Google Shopping or on any of the marketplaces, it's really the billboard that you got to, this is your one shot to communicate as much as possible. And I think the mistake that a lot of people make is, one, the image is just not high quality enough or like enlarged enough. I hate it when you see these images and it's just a lot of empty space. It's like you've got all this dead pixel space, right? And that's a shame because I can't even tell what this image is. It's so small. So one, making sure that's zoomed in. Two, I think the thing that's really important is that a lot of products come with, let's say, accessories or parts or whatever it is. And a lot of times that's not communicated well. And I think if you can find a clean way to put that into your image, it's going to make a big difference. We had this case study where we had a headphone manufacturer who was, he was selling, like AirPod type things. And he wasn't doing well against his competition. And so he kept iterating on his imagery, and it actually came with a lot of stuff. There was a case, there were like different earpieces, to change the fit and all that kind of stuff. And as he started adjusting the layout, he started getting much higher click-through rate. He got it to the point where not only did the click-through rate improve by 15%, he actually increased the price by 10 euros. This is over in Europe. So no change to the product. All he did was iterate on the imagery through PickFu until he found an image that made it feel like you were getting more for your money, right? Because, oh wait, it's not just the headphones. Like there's like a nice carrying case, and maybe you spend a lot of time on that carrying case. It comes with all these like adjustments and all these things. And so if you're going to have all that stuff, and that is part of the price, that is part of the cost, your cost of manufacturing, then you should get credit for it. You should make it clear to people when they're shopping on your website or any of these marketplaces. So I would say that's the easiest low-hanging fruit. One test that I'll also recommend that people can do is putting their product detail page up on a test with PickFu. So you could say, hey, visit this page. What questions do you still have about this product? And I guarantee you people are going to respond with stuff that you thought you answered really well. And they're going to ask, is this thing washable? Like what are the materials? And maybe you thought you covered it because like there was a random bullet somewhere deep on the page that you thought covered it, but maybe that's not enough. Maybe you need to mention it multiple times. Maybe it needs to be in some of the secondary images or whatever it is. I think there's a lot of times where we make an assumption that like, oh, of course people are going to know that this is machine washable. Well, do they? And maybe you need to have imagery or a video or something. If that is a key selling point to it, then make sure it's really conveyed on your product detail page. So I think that's a really easy test. If you don't know where to start and maybe you're not getting the conversions on that product page, just throw the page up, have people visit it, and they'll tell you, this is very confusing. I don't understand like what you're trying to sell me.
Yeah, absolutely. You brought up a good point, and this is a question actually I wanted to ask you. So Miva, for instance, you could put quite a few photos in your product section, and how important. I know you guys have done some studies because I've known you guys for a lot of years, been to a lot of trade shows and different events, and seen you guys speak and everything. But how important is, let's say, image number 2, 3, 4 like that? And what should people be testing when it comes to non-hero image?
Yeah, so there's definitely the order that matters, right? Because not everyone's going to get through all the different images. So one aspect would be testing the order of the images. So you could test up to 8 different things on a platform like PickFu. You could upload all of them, and then when we run a test like that, we actually ask them to rank all of them in preferential order. So they would say like, D, B, C, A, F, and that'll give you a sense of, you could ask like, which of these images are most important in making the buying decision for this product, right? And so they're going to say like, oh, well, maybe this image that has like an infographic of like the specs is important to me, or I really like this one showing it, a lifestyle image like out in the wild with, in the forest or whatever it is. And so you'll get a good sense of what's important to them. The other thing you could do is as you're creating and iterating on those individual images is actually, obviously you could, A/B test them. So like, okay, we're trying to test different infographics. Do people like this version or this version, different information on it, different font styles? Like, obviously you can test those things. But another thing you can test, and people don't realize this, is that you don't always have to test things against each other. You could just ask open-ended about something. So the way that people do this with ads and marketing creatives is, you put up your image or your video and you ask them, what is the key takeaway you're getting from this marketing creative? And hopefully it's what you intended, right? Like, we shouldn't be creating these supplemental images without some kind of idea or focus. Like, oh, okay, we need to get the point across that it's trustworthy and it's washable and it's durable. If they're seeing that image and they're not saying any of those things, you've got a problem here, right? Or they watch a video and they're like, I'm totally confused, like what I'm supposed to take away from this video. Not a good sign, right? So I think that's the other way you could also help with your ads as well. Obviously, when you're running ads on, let's say, a Facebook, you could see which they're going to help you optimize which one performs better. But is the message that's being taken away the one that you want it to be, right? Because just because something gets more clicks doesn't mean that they're taking the right thing away from the ad creative. So that's something that you should also test on PickFu, just trying to understand if the message you're trying to deliver through some kind of marketing copy, imagery, or video is actually being resonating.
Yeah, absolutely. Justin, why don't you give us a example of a customer success story that you guys share?
Yeah. So it's kind of funny because there's two kinds of stories here. There's a lot of stories kind of like yours where the best thing we can actually do a lot of times is help you avoid disaster. And we hear a lot of those, a lot of people will test out hypothetical products. They'll test it out to see the price because, it's all about if you can get the right selling price with your cost structure. Or, I remember one guy came up to me and said that he used PickFu to test color variations for a diary. And he wanted to stock all kinds of different colors, amazing, beautiful colors. But when he ran the test of like, hey, which color would you buy? Everyone just wanted like the same boring color. And so he's like, well, I'm just going to order that color. And of course, like it just sells out. So like, I don't know. Do you argue with that? And is that a bad thing? What we all don't want is, all this inventory sitting, and we've all purchased stuff where, hey, if I buy this color, it's 30% cheaper. Well, that's because no one wants it and they're trying to move it and they're probably losing money on it. And that's an unfortunate situation. So really avoiding these kind of losses is kind of is a huge win. But yeah, in terms of turnaround success story, I would say one of the biggest ones that we have was Thrasio, actually, when they bought the Angry Orange brand, and which was a pet deodorizer formulation, and the branding and packaging was homely. I would describe it. It was by an individual entrepreneur, and it was fine. Like, it was a great product, but they had bigger aspirations. They wanted to be able to build a whole brand line around this, and so they wanted to do a big packaging branding revamp. But the issue was that it was going to be super expensive. I think they said that it was going to be $50,000 of investment to make all these changes, and so they really wanted to get it right. So they tested a lot of different variations of the new branding, bottle packaging, all that kind of stuff on PickFu before finally settling on this new Angry Orange, beautiful orange bottle with like a more modern logo style, and it crushed it. Like, immediately as soon as they launched that, they saw their sales increase, and then it was so good that they kept extending the brand to other products using the same packaging, orange packaging that they had tested with PickFu, and then also the same branding across the entire platform. So, still one of our best case studies, and I know it was for them also one of their cornerstone products. So yeah, that's the kind of thing that we love to hear. One other one that's actually really fun is a different aggregator, Elevate Brands. If you're in the space, you'll recognize the name. But before that, they were actually called Recon Brands.
Yep.
And they were using PickFu. They used us for a bunch of different things. They liked it so much that when they went through the rebrand, just like your podcast, they decided to test their. And so it was an amazing process because we got to see all the different names that they were testing, and then more importantly, they tested their name against their competition. So they tested like, hey, Elevate Brands versus like all these other big aggregators, and it tested phenomenally well. It's a great name. Elevate Brands is a great name. And so that was a really cool story to have the executive team not only put their faith in PickFu to test their products, but also to change the corporate identity.
Absolutely. Big shout out to the Elevate Brands crew, good friends of both of ours. So yeah, very cool. Justin, let's talk a little bit about PickFu and give everybody a better understanding of kind of, what you guys do. You do a lot. I mean, it's not just A/B testing. There's a lot going on behind the scenes there, and maybe touch a little bit also on, sometimes like I was mentioning, like, I was testing the two different podcast names.
Yeah.
Well, I locked in both those names because I was scared, like if I put these up on a test, is somebody going to go grab the .com who's, saying, yes, I like this one better than the other. So talk a little bit about kind of like the security, or if somebody's testing like a prototype and how that all works. And then, obviously go a little bit more into the different types of things people can A/B test.
Yeah. So think of it as a digital focus group. We tap into all the same enterprise grade consumer panels that a Procter & Gamble would use when they're doing longer form research. So when these large CPG brands are doing research, they have their own insights team. They work with a market research agency or consultancy. Then they have to program these long form surveys. They have to go find, they tap into these panels that we also tap into. They got to clean all the data because there's a lot of crap data that comes back. And so it's a very expensive and long, tedious process. And we try to make all of that accessible for non-insights people who don't have the budget to have an insights team. Maybe they do have an insights team, but they want to be able to run the tests themselves. And that's what we're trying to democratize consumer insights for everyone. So we bring the audience so you don't have to go find it. Maybe you have your own customer list and that's fine. You could always pull them, but we're trying to help you find your target audience in a very fast and affordable way. So it starts at $1 per response, and we can target things, like I said, women, dog owners who drink coffee, or people who take nutritional supplements and use a lot of cosmetics, a lot of different consumer behavioral targeting. We're going to go find them. We're going to incentivize them through these platforms, and they're going to, they're going to vote on the things that you put in front of them, and they're going to give you written explanation and demographic information. So part of that process is that we do require them to agree to a non-disclosure. They don't see any of your content until they agree to that. And then they know that they are incentivized by doing a good job. And if they don't do a good job, they're not going to get paid. So that's why you do get a lot of really nice, lengthy answers. I'm sure you've got a lot of insightful ones in the past. And then we have our own data quality process on top of that. So we probably toss out over half the responses that we get because they just suck. Like, like either people aren't paying attention, or they're just writing gibberish, or, they're not genuinely answering the question. And so that's how we're able to, when you ask for 50, we're going to give you 50 of the highest quality that we could find. So that's our promise to you. So that's kind of how the system works, and it's super fast. I mean, I'm sure yours was hopefully, 30 minutes to an hour to get those 50 entrepreneurs. But, sometimes when you're doing 15 to 30 general audience, it'll literally be done in like 10, 15 minutes. Like it's so fast. You walk away, get your coffee, you come back. Yours is a great example. When John and I first created this, it was kind of for petty reasons. It was settling bar bets, settling who's right about a redesign. And, all teams have these debates internally, right? Like you're chatting online. It's like, no, like, why are we doing, it should be this one, not this one. Well, throw it up, just let the crowd, settle the debate. And you could read through all the reasons and you could still choose the thing. What I always tell people is that you don't have to choose a winner. It's still your choice. It's still your business. It's still whatever. But at least you're going in with your eyes wide open. You hear the people's objections and maybe you discard them because you're okay with that. And it's still your call. But at least you have that data point of, okay, the font is a little weird, but that's our font and we're going to go with it. Right. So so that's what I'll say about that. About the different use cases, I think I touched on a lot of them. I think what we're known for is definitely comparing things against each other. What I'll stress there is that it doesn't always have to be your own variations. It could always be competitors. And we talked about that as well. A lot of people don't realize they can test against their competitors, but that's arguably the most important test, because what happens sometimes is that people get so caught up iterating on their own variations and they're like, oh man, this one's so good. But it's really only a local maxima, right? Like if you haven't then retested against the competition, whether you're in a marketplace or just the broad competition out there, it may not be a better in absolute terms. And that's what you have to win in absolute terms to be able to get the sale. So I do want to stress testing against your competition, and then open-ended things. So yeah, you can get open-ended feedback on an image or copy. We have a click test also. So you could actually put up, let's say a screenshot of your homepage, right? Like your Miva, either your layout or like your search result, you could change all these things. And so you could put up a screenshot of it, and then you could ask people, hey, if you were searching for something, like, where would you click? If you were trying to buy this product, what is the first place that you would click? Or, click on the area that you really don't like about this page, right? And so, oh, I don't like this pop-up thing, or, like this button is really like in my face or whatever it is. And so we'll generate a little heat map, and then you could see all the different comments that people wrote about that. So that's a nice way to gather qualitative feedback about clicks. Because again, if you're doing like a screen recording on your own website, you see a lot of clicks, but you don't know why. Like, why are they rage clicking there? Well, now you could see people rage click it, and then they'll explain why.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Justin, actually, why don't you first share how do people get a hold of you guys?
Yeah, so definitely just go to pickfu.com, pickfu.com. Sign up for free. It's free to sign up. We have a free onboarding poll, so you could actually experience the live results coming in on your own product for free. And you never need a subscription. You just pay as you go. So, create that free account. It starts at $1 per response. Super, super easy. If you want to reach out to me, you could find me on LinkedIn under Justin Chen, and I'm pretty active there.
Yeah. So head on over to PickFu, pickfu.com. And if you want to email them, it's info@pickfu.com. Justin, great having you on. Now, before I let you go, we're going to do a quick bonus question, and you can keep this a little bit short. So some of the things I'm aware of that you guys A/B tested, for instance, like book covers. I've seen my wife actually, when she was doing real estate, she tested a couple of her photos for her real estate photo. I've even heard actually baby names being A/B tested. What is the craziest thing you've heard A/B tested you can share? Because I'm sure there's some really crazy things, but what's the craziest thing that you've had people A/B test on your platform?
Crazy
that you can
things. Well,
or even bizarre, weird.
So yeah, we do see a lot of baby names. We see a lot of adult content, actually. A lot of romance novels, a lot of adult products being concept tested, even how they're advertised, And so you can imagine there's a lot of creative ways to advertise adult products. And so we see a lot of interesting things there. A lot of profile pics. So LinkedIn pics, Tinder pics of like, hey, which one would you date, kind of thing. And also like outfits. So, which dress should I wear to this? So yeah, it's really anything.
That's crazy. That's some crazy ones for sure. It just shows you that There's a wide variety of different things. And by the way, we didn't even dive really deep into, you can really start targeting, are you going to target men versus women? If it's a men, what age group? Let's say maybe it's people that have certain subscriptions, or they're part of a certain group, or household income. Really, there's such a large variations. We didn't really dive into that too much, but listen, go check out PickFu.com. Good friends of mine. I've been using them for many, many things. I didn't even scratch the surface on the amount of things I've used PickFu for to A/B test. It's just been absolutely crazy. But Justin, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it. Everybody, please go check out PickFu, PickFu.com. And Justin, we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for tuning in to Ecommerce Revamped. Ready to take your e-commerce business to the next level? Visit Miva.com for the tools to build seamless online stores and unforgettable customer experiences. Until next time, keep your cards full and your customers happy.